So there's a lot of excitement around midterm rentals, but there's also a lot of fear around midterm rentals. And I think part of the fear is, will we hit a saturation point? Maybe the way that we're seeing with short-term rentals. I obviously have some thoughts on that, and we are going to explore those in this video. But I also just want to say that at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you a question to ask your friends and family that hopefully will bring you a lot of comfort if you are thinking about doing midterm rentals and you're worried about a saturation point. The midterm rentals, there's opportunity, but there's also risk with it. The opportunity being, hey, I can get in on this market that only some people have heard about. And then on the flip side of it, it's like, well, I've heard about it. Has everybody heard about it? How do I protect myself and know that this market isn't saturated for midterm rentals? And I think it's a fair paranoia because it comes out of the short-term rental investing space where we do see oversaturation. And what that means, or what I mean by that, is that if you had bought or started a short-term rental 10 years ago, your numbers would be much better than they are now. And the reason for that is because there was a lot less competition. But what happened is you had a bunch of hosts that were very excited about the amount of money that they were making on their real estate investments with Airbnb and vacation rentals. They told their neighbors, they told their friends and family. Those people thought, hey, I want to cut. They bought them up. And then now we have more competition, more options. And so the guests can flex a little bit and say, hey, I'm not going to pay that. Or, just everybody has been diluted a little bit and the numbers have come down. And so it has happened in the short-term space, and the fear is that it's also going to happen in the midterm space. So let's address two things before we move on. First, Airbnb really didn't become popular or a household name until 2014, which means that almost everybody that got wealthy off of real estate before 2014 did it without Airbnb. They did it with a long-term unfurnished. And I only point this out because I think sometimes people are like, this is the model I have to do, or there's a right way or a wrong way. Or also, understandably, people get excited by the amount of money you can get off of a furnished rental, and they want to take advantage of that, or they want to be part of that if they can. And I totally get that. But I also feel like, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot when all these people, like everybody in the US up until 2014, was getting rich off of this different kind of model. So my feeling is that that model still very much works. And if you believe in appreciation, you believe appreciation is the primary driver of money in real estate, then these models are just skimming around the edges. And so if short-term becomes slightly less attractive than it used to, or if midterm becomes slightly less attractive than it used to, it's actually not the end of the world, because that's only 20% of your returns. And even then, we're not talking about losing the full 20%. We're saying going from $100 to $80 a night or something. I think thinking about it in that context helps and makes it less scary, hopefully. Second, most properties are very rentable. It is a pricing and a marketing issue. Just keep that in mind. People will rent your place, but they might not rent it for what you want or what you think it should rent for. Or you may need to do certain things like buy professional photos or take out some of the furniture or replace it with new furniture. But the majority of places will rent, and it's a pricing and marketing issue. It's not a rentability issue. Some of my consulting clients will come in and say, well, I saw that traveling nurses in this area make this much. I encourage you to ignore those numbers, because just because a traveling nurse can make that or has made that in the past, that doesn't mean that they're willing to overpay on a rental because they are paid well. So I think it's smarter for you as the host landlord to look at what an average number is across rentals and base it off of that, versus basing it off of what a particular tenant type makes for their income. And let's talk for a minute about the risk with doing a midterm rental, because I also think this is relevant to a saturation idea. If you have a short-term rental and the regulation has changed in your city, and now you can no longer do rentals for 30 days or fewer, or you're a landlord and you're just burning out, you're not enjoying the experience of being a short-term rental host anymore, and you want to move into a midterm rental, that's not a lot of risk for you, because you already own the furniture, you're probably already on the platforms, you're really just talking talking about doing an extension and trying to figure a slightly different tenant type, but you already own the property, you already own the furniture. So it's an experiment at that point with very little consequence. It's a much bigger risk if you have not bought a property yet, or if you're having success with a long-term unfurnished rental and you're thinking about bumping into midterm rentals. Some of my consulting calls are just about me telling people, I don't think you should do a midterm rental. I don't think it's the right market for it, or I think you have too much competition, or you've had a lot of success as a long-term unfurnished rental. So why are we actually thinking about paying for furniture to put into a rental? And so the calculation there is, will I be able to pay off that furniture quickly? And will I make so much more on the midterm rental that it makes it worth it to bump into that model and exit the long-term unfurnished? All right. And before I get into the good news around midterm rentals, and I promise it is good news, if you feel like you're learning something on this video, please like it. If you want more content like this, please subscribe. If you're looking for consulting, I'm going to put my email up on the screen and you can just reach out and we can talk about options. And then finally, if you are looking for midterm rental books, I have written 3 and they are available on Amazon. Okay, now let's get to the good news, and I promise it is good news. And I can't remember if I said this before. If I did, excuse me. If you're worried about saturation, it's not like you go into a market and you're definitely saturated or you're definitely not. What it depends on is the size of your property, what you're near, if your neighbors have an awareness of midterm rentals and they're also moving into that market. Even if you are running your numbers and it seems like the rental numbers are a little bit soft in a particular market, you might see if a bigger property does better or a studio does better than what you're running. You might also see if different parts of town do better. But that's not even the good news. The good news is the reason why I am bullish on midterm rentals is that I think that they are the future of rental models. I think right now they're a niche, but I think going forward, they're going to become very mainstream. And the reason why I think that is because if you have the option to walk in and out of a place and just yourself and not lug around furniture, and you can read the reviews on that property, and that property says the bed is super comfortable, the dining room seats 6, the smart TV always works, the fenced area was perfect for my dog, then there's a lot of incentive to just be you and your pet or you and your clothes walking in and out of a property versus lugging all of your stuff in. And I also think that the generation, so I'm like an older millennial / Gen X, but I think mid-millennials and everyone younger, they grew up with Airbnb. So like they're aware of hotels, but Airbnb has also been a part of their life for a long time with vacationing. So it's not that huge of a leap for them to think about staying in a rental that is fully furnished, just like their vacation. It's just an extension of the idea. And that idea was new for Gen Xers, newer millennials, and our parents and our friends and family, but now it's not a new idea anymore. MTR's midterm rentals are really going to grow in popularity because people will pay for convenience, and this is very much a convenience. Added to that, I think when you look at millennials, there's a real emphasis on I want to pay and live a life of experiences, but not things, and this really lends itself to that. Like if someone has a job and it's a remote job and they're not tethered to a particular location or a city, they can work from Mexico, they can work from California, they can work from Denver, they can work from Europe, right? And so they can go and stay places for a month and there's no need to be tied down by things. And in fact, there may be a backlash against being tied down to things. Okay, and final note, the question that I want you to ask your friends and family to make yourself feel better about a midterm rental is just ask 2 or 3 people, hey, if you were given an option to go and stay somewhere that's fully furnished for 3 months, 6 months, you could leave your stuff behind, but you could bring your pets and go and hang out there versus lugging your stuff around, would you do that? And you can even explain, hey, I watched this video, this crazy woman is telling me that, you know, she thinks in the future that this is going to be the model because she thinks people don't want to move around their furniture. Do you agree with that? Does that seem crazy? Does that make sense? And I'm talking about kind of before you get married or settled down, like the 10 years, you know, between high school and when you kind of get more developed in your career or get married. Like, does that seem feasible to you or does it not? And take just a light poll. Ask 3 people in your life what they think about it. I have confidence that people will respond to this idea and that they'll like it, and that it's actually not just young people, because we're seeing seniors really grow in Airbnb. Seniors are the fastest growing demographic for host for Airbnb. So so that suggests that they have a level of comfort or liking of this model. And again, I think it extends into the long-term model as well.